It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just...
When two of boxing's most talked about figures, YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul and the pound-for-pound powerhouse Gervonta Tank Davis, finally step into the ring, legends of the game are already whispering their predictions. Tank arrives armed with devastating knockouts, razor-sharp speed, and the kind of experience forged against the very best, while Paul shoulders the weight of massive expectations and headline-making battles. Some icons believe Davis will, once again, rule with his precision and footwork. Yet others insist Paul's height, reach, and knack for surprises might create the year's ultimate shock.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that, of course, he's going to win. And, of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, oh, I just beat the best man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Meanwhile, the stage itself has shifted. No longer Atlanta, on November 14th, Jake Paul will now meet Gervonta Davis at the Casa Center in Miami. MVP announced with flair. The war leaves Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis now storms MSME. Same date, same fight, brand new city. This clash will stream worldwide on Netflix. And while many label it pure spectacle, official word frames it as an exhibition. Yet lingering beneath the buzz is a striking size gap. Paul last tipped the scales near 199 for pounds, entering as a cruiserweight. Davis, instead, has fought close to 135 pounds in recent bouts. And because of that gap, Davis's WBA lightweight crown remains untouched.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV.
Even though the fine print of this fight remains clouded in mystery, there's still no confirmed contract weight, no official word on the number of rounds, and no clarity on whether it will follow the rules of a true professional bout. To many watching closely, this feels less like a traditional title fight and more like a crossover spectacle, a clash built for show. That's why debates rage on about fairness, about safety, and about whether boxing's sacred weight class system can hold its ground against the pull of entertainment.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Crawford looks at the looming showdown between Paul and Davis with clear skepticism, mostly because of the glaring size gap. To him, the matchup feels more like theater than a true test of merit, something closer to a sparring session disguised as a fight night spectacle. He admits Davis is a brilliant, explosive talent with undeniable pedigree, but warns that if Paul's larger frame really grants him leverage, and if he lands flush, momentum could shift instantly. Still, Crawford doubts it will unfold under genuine professional rules, stressing again and again that the weight divide erases any notion of calling them equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson, unbeaten and widely respected, views the Paul versus Davis clash as an uneven challenge, especially for Davis, given Paul's much larger size. Still, Stevenson insists that Davis's experience, sharp technique, and mastery of the ring would let him control the fight with ease. He envisions Davis leaning on movement, accuracy, and pure fundamentals instead of trading power with Paul. In Stevenson's eyes, Paul lacks the refinement to match Davis's speed or IQ, and he doubts Davis would chase a knockout, more likely securing victory on the scorecards. Yet while Stevenson criticizes the spectacle, calling it disrespectful to boxing, he stays convinced Davis's skill sits far above Paul's.
He's here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even the, and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. And he called cap on it. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier takes a more layered perspective on this matchup. He credits Jake Paul for daring to share a ring with someone of Davis's stature, noting the blend of risk and reward tied to that choice. At the same time, he points out how lopsided it looks because of the weight gap. For him, it's hard to frame this as fair within boxing's usual standards. Cormier underlines that Davis stands as the more proven boxer in skill, pedigree, and experience, meaning Paul is gambling heavily. He also considers the fallout of defeat. For Paul, credibility could take a serious hit. For Davis, losing to a bigger man could scar his reputation. Though Cormier avoids making a bold prediction, he tilts toward Davis on merit, while warning Paul's size keeps the outcome uncertain.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is, but he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez frames the Paul versus Davis showdown less as a fight for glory or belts and more as a spectacle, one fueled by showmanship and profit instead of legacy or rankings. He argues there's no shame in that, since both men walk away with enormous paydays and the guarantee of mainstream attention. While it lacks the weight of a true championship clash, Lopez insists the event still holds value by pulling in new audiences and sparking conversation. Even as an exhibition, it can serve boxing, bringing fresh eyes to the sport, broadening its reach, and reminding the world of boxing's power when personalities, drama, and entertainment collide.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show. A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to critique them.
Promoter Eddie Hearn shared a similar view, but pushed it even further. He warned that boxing and entertainment must stay separate, and a fight between Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul dangerously blurs that line. In Hearn's eyes, the contest isn't competitive in pure boxing terms. It's a business play, powered by celebrity clout and social media frenzy. He highlights the clear size gap as proof this fight isn't about skill on equal ground. Instead, it's a spectacle crafted to hook the mainstream. Hearn concedes the financial side is undeniable, with worldwide interest and huge revenue on the table. Yet, as a lifelong defender of true competition, he's unsettled when matchups exist more for money than merit. Still, as a promoter, he admits it's good business. Guaranteed headlines, ticket sales, and pay-per-view buys. Even if purists believe the sport's standards take a hit.
They always told us that it was, we were looking at that fight for February of next year, and they always said that there was a chance that Jake would fight in November. I think, wasn't I the one that broke Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis 6 months ago or something? I knew that they'd agree that deal. I didn't know they were about to announce it then, but I did know that they'd agreed that deal previously. So I don't like it, if I'm honest. I mean, I think we need to really differentiate between boxing and an entertainment concept, and that's what that is. It's a freak show. It's entertainment. It's a lightweight fighting a cruiserweight. With, I don't know, is it bigger gloves and certain minutes per round? I don't know what it is, but I understand the market, and I understand this freak show shock kind of the world mentality of people potentially tuning in. Is that a step too far? Maybe. I mean, I hated Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, but it did massive numbers. I hate Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. It'll probably do massive numbers. So that's when you really have to differentiate yourself between, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it isn't going to do good business. However you want to be involved with it is another kettle of fish. I don't want to be involved with it, but I do respect the fact that it's going to do big numbers. It's just not boxing. And I don't think we should promote it as boxing.
In the meantime, then, Eddie, where does that leave you with Anthony Joshua? Are you exploring other options for the end of this year, or are you still looking at that fight for the beginning?
Yeah, no, we're not interested in the Jake Paul fight right now. After that, I mean, we're not going to wait around till November. Is it November or December, whenever it is? And
Rolly Romero delivers a balanced view of the Paul versus Davis fight, reminding fans that Tank's legacy in boxing is already untouchable. As a multi-division champion with marquee titles and hard-fought wins, Davis has earned a level of respect that no loss to Jake Paul could erase. Still, Romero concedes Jake's size is a serious factor, admitting that being naturally bigger hands Paul a genuine physical edge. Yet he emphasizes that Paul's frame cannot diminish all that Tank has accomplished. The legacy, the belts, the recognition from his peers, those remain Davis's, no matter how the night ends.
But Jake Paul might be too big for him, or Tank might crack him. You don't know. Like I said, or as an exhibition, we don't know if they throw at each other or not, or we don't know. I don't know. I can't give an opinion because I don't know what's going on.
Do you think it impacts, will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were to beat him or even knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, a 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him.
Paulie Malignaggi draws a sharp line between experience and size. Though Jake Paul has bulked up in stature and built a wave of popularity, Malignaggi stresses that true boxing experience outweighs raw strength. Gervonta Davis has performed under the brightest lights, headlined huge nights, and battled against top-tier opposition. No matter how large Jake Paul appears, he cannot equal the years of training, the deep ring IQ, and the adaptability that Tank carries with him. Malignaggi's take rests on a timeless truth. In boxing, it is skill and experience that usually tip the scales over size alone.
I think Davis is more to lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. Davis, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you. You can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch at lightweight. Can he drop a heavyweight? There's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah. But if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion, multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, what's the look? What's the feel? on the inside as boxers, me and, Chris Algieri, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience. So we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you, you're probably going down if you're a small guy, if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still hasn't earned?
What do you see unfolding when Jake Paul collides with Gervonta Davis? Will raw size prove to be the difference, or will pure skill rise above it? Share your prediction in the comments below.